Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time as well as some modern releases I have recently finished. Today I want to talk about the retro video game market and how prices are going up. This is primarily due to a couple reasons. This could be just like scarcity and people really wanting to jump on certain games, certain franchises. I'll be touching on the Pokemon series in just a little bit. Or it could be due to digital storefronts going down, like the Microsoft Xbox 360 store going down in 6 days as of the time of this recording. So if you're looking to buy any Microsoft games for your 360 or you want to preserve any of those games, I would recommend going and buying them now. I think there are some sales from certain developers and such to try and incentivize you to buy right now because they're going to be closing down. But it's also driving the prices up on physical games. So again, if you want to get some physical copies of Xbox 360 games, now is probably the time to do it. My brother-in-law has been looking for me at like used game stores and it looks like prices are going up. He sent me an article that I read all about and people are already jumping on at the bit to increase their prices so they can make more money on their physical copies. It's a bummer to see these storefronts go down. I understand why. It doesn't make sense for a company to keep multiple storefronts up, especially if the one that's from like the 360, the PlayStation 3 era, isn't making a lot of money. People aren't using it very often, so it just costs them money to maintain it. And it's a bummer because you don't want to lose the games that are digital only that never got a physical release, but it also makes sense from a business perspective, so I understand why they're doing it, but it kind of just sucks. We want to see those games preserved as much as possible, and once the storefront's down, we rely on other people to have downloaded those games to keep them readily accessible. So it's just a little bit of a bummer to see, and even more so if you're in the used game market right now, like me. I'm trying to get some old series like Gears of War, the Fable games, trying to get my old library of Xbox 360 games up since I now own an Xbox, and now's the time to jump on games, and I'm seeing that firsthand. I saw a couple of lots that I was looking at on like eBay that were going up for auction, all of a sudden jump way past their projected point. Like their buy it now was pretty low, and then it got past that in the auction point, which I thought was really, really interesting. So some of these lots are getting more expensive, as I've seen online. So it's just now's the time to buy, it seems. And I hate seeing it because that generation, especially the Xbox 360, the PlayStation 3, the Wii era, all of those consoles sold right around 100 million or over 100 million consoles apiece. All the companies were popping off. So they made lots of copies for all of these games. They should be readily available, but they're becoming more expensive because, again, you can't buy them digitally anymore, so you just have to rely on the physical copies. And so for someone like me who doesn't have all the resources in the world, I don't want to spend a pretty penny on every single used game I get from just a couple generations back. But it's just a bummer to see, is what I'm trying to get at. But the other thing I wanted to touch on was how my brother-in-law at one of the used game stores, he looked at the older retro games section where they had single carts of the Pokemon games without a manual, without a box, for over $200 and over $300 a cartridge. You can get a brand new console for that kind of money. I did some research on eBay. You can get some like what they say is authentic cartridges for somewhere in the $200 range for several of the Pokemon games. That's still a ton of money. And if you're getting a cheaper one, you risk buying just a reproduction copy. Typically, you can spot them. There are ways. I don't remember them all now. I remember back in the day when I was getting some old like GBA games, I was making sure I was getting the authentic ones, having them send me pictures of certain things to give it away. You can look it up online if you're interested in that. But you risk buying reproduction copies, and even if you don't, you're going to be spending a ton of money on these old games. I understand for Pokemon, gotta catch them all applies to the games too. People want to have the entire library, but it's so ridiculous how expensive they are because you can't access them digitally and they don't sell them physically anymore. They're just going to keep going up in price because they're such a huge collector's item. And it's just insane for me to see going to used game stores and seeing stuff hundreds of dollars. I don't know. I don't understand it. I like being a collector myself. I have lots of old video games. I have lots of ones that are collector's pieces that are probably worth a lot of money. I don't intend to sell them. I just like having them as part of my collection because they're a valuable piece for me. I like having the physical media. That's why I waited so long for Baldur's Gate 3, the deluxe edition, because I really wanted to have a physical copy of that. And it bums me out as a collector that things just keep going up in price. I know a couple of years ago we had the whole fiasco with like games going to bid, like graded copies of like original Super Mario Bros. And other things selling for record prices, and it looked like the industry was just booming and going up. And then we had some people like Carl Jobs that like exposed the industry and talked about how they were like inflating prices themselves and really making it so like it seemed like the retro game market was way more valuable than it was. And it went down for a time, but it looks like it's kind of bouncing back, at least from what I've seen so far. And again, as a collector, I don't like seeing that nearly as much. I like just finding good deals. I like finding gems at thrift shops and stuff. And I know that's not always going to be realistic. I know people want to capitalize on their product that they've saved for a very long time. But I just want to collect the games that I want to collect, and I don't want to have to worry about storefronts shutting down and all of a sudden having to pay twice as much for used copies. So let me know in the comment section down below what you think about the used game market. Do you buy games physically anymore? Do you like going to game stores and thrift shops and trying to find gems? Or is that something that's kind of a relic of the past for you? Do you typically buy digitally? I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.